Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Happy Sunday. This is Yamez with the Impractical Blacksmiths. With me today, we have Adam from. Um, I had a good start too. I had a great start. Adam from. God dang it! What's your forge name there, Adam? Speargrass.
Sure.
They're in shock because all morning I've been like, "Ugh," because I feel like, "Ugh." And then we also have Alexis with Transcendental Artist Studios. Today is Sunday, and as everybody knows, we do our live show here on YouTube for the Impractical Blacksmithing podcast, which is in the works as well. In the chat
Don't
today, we have Transcendental Artist Studios. We have Trail Dust, Ben Toombs, Shane Lalonde, Jack Pines, John Burnell, or Bruno L. Deranged Metalworks from Kentucky. We have S&S Smithing. What's up, Mr. Tucker? How you doing? Bortagov. And a whole slew of lurkers. Holy cow. We have 57 people watching? No. Why is there no analytics going on right now? Okay, there we go. It's clicked over. Alrighty. So yeah. As with every Sunday, Mr. Whitney, hello. I said John Burnell. No audio? Oh no. There's gotta be audio. Let me see real quick. Shane Lalonde. Yeah, I have audio going out.
Yep, audio
Okay.
is fine.
All right. Turn your volume up, Shane, or turn off your Bluetooth. You might be going to speakers that you have somewhere else. Check your audio. So yeah, as with every week, we go into the "How was your week" segment, where we discuss the good things and bad things and horrible things and boring things that we do week in and week out. Alexis would go first then.
Yeah, we'll
Alrighty.
talk about all the good and the bad things that could be. Sure. Oh man, it's been well. I wasn't here last week because oh yeah, I was driving out to location last week, and yeah, it's been a heck of a couple of weeks actually. Got some stuff taken care of at home that needed to be handled. With grateful for that. I also got knocked out my little rose project, the monthly blacksmith challenge for January was a rose, and I've never done a rose, so I started last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. I don't remember, it all runs together. 100-hour work week, so I mean, I can't tell what day is what, but I started in titanium and I broke it, and so I started over in steel, and then I broke that one twice, and was really getting frustrated. And on the 31st, the morning of the 31st, I woke up and my night shift canceled, and I was like, I got an idea. I got an idea. I know how I'm going to do this, and so there it is. It's all like it's reminiscent of it's a Charlie Brown Christmas. It's a Charlie Brown Valentine. So uh, it's the sad little rose that's wilting. And
It actually reminds me of the lamp from Pixar. It reminds me of the Pixar lamp.
I didn't even think of that, but that's a fair point. I was going to add thorns as well on the stem, but I mean, I was down to the point where like one more oops, and I was just going to have to throw the whole thing away. And I was just like, I'm this close to done. This is the last day. I can't afford another oops, like burning it or something like that. So I just left it be. And so that was that. I've started writing a book, and that is fun. Let me tell you, my therapist recommended that you should really write a book, and he's been on me about this for a while. And finally, I was like, all right, you know what? Let's do this. And so I did an outline last week. I decided, look, start with an outline. This is what all the chapters are going to be, and I figured, what am I? I'm probably not going to have enough, because you think that, I guess. And just so far, I've got 57 chapters, and so yeah,
That's a lot of chapters.
I've written the introduction, and I'm about halfway through chapter 1, and I imagine it's probably going to take me about 14 to 18 months to write it. And yay, that's fun. And let's see, other than that, work. Thank goodness, because it's been I've had just enough over the last like month or so to stay afloat. And getting a 100-hour work week in there, man, that really saves my bacon. So, and got tax season coming up, so I got that money fixing to roll in. So I'll be set for the month of February or March, depending on when all that comes through. But at least until I pay a couple bills, and then I'll be back to. I'm in the poorhouse now. Adam, how was your week?
My week, well, my fortnight. Of course, last week I worked, and I have had a semi-challenging fortnight. Saturday night last week, driving back, and my car started making a horrible sound from underneath the bonnet. What you guys would call the hood. And so I pulled up the work and opened up I popped the hood to see what was going on, and it seems as though the clutch on my air conditioning has just about disintegrated. So it was making a horrible squealing, grinding noise. Yeah, so that was Saturday night. I had to drive it home Sunday morning and then drive my wife's car to work Sunday night. Luckily, she didn't work Monday morning because she wouldn't have been able to get to work because I had the car. And so I've had to take my ute into the dealership to find out. Luckily, it's under warranty, and hopefully it gets approved for warranty for that particular thing, because air conditioning clutches usually take 5 to 10 years to go, 10 to 15 years to fail. Mine's done it in less than 5. So
because you ride it hard and put it away dirty. What? Sorry.
No.
Dirty.
But anyway, so I haven't really had a car I haven't really been willing to drive my car for most of the week. I didn't have it for half the week, and then wasn't willing to drive it too much because I had to take the fan belt off. And of course, the average temperature here is 30 plus degrees, and that's in Celsius. So that's about what, 90 to 100 odd degrees Fahrenheit. And so driving without an aircon it's a little bit sweaty, even with the windows down. And then in addition to that, when it rains, it's then really humid, so the windows fog up, and you can either drive with the windows down and get drenched, or drive with the windows up and not be able to see. And now it only stopped raining here. It was pretty much raining. Last episode I was on, so a fortnight ago, it had been raining for about 2 weeks straight. But at that stage, it only stopped raining on Wednesday or Thursday morning. It stopped raining finally, and so it's finally starting to dry up here. Enough that I can get out and do things. My workshop's no longer underwater. It doesn't have an inch of water in running through the workshop now. But because I haven't really had my car to go out and drive out, I don't have any fuel to do any sort of forging. So it's kind of been one of those situations where it's kind of like I can't do anything at the moment. And of course, the ground's too wet to actually make charcoal, and the wood's too wet to make charcoal. So I literally have not been able to do anything on that front. So the only other thing I've done is made mead. A couple of months in December, I made some basic honey mead, a very basic one. And so I finally racked that this week, and then I put down 20 liters of a blueberry mead, and I put 20 liters down, which is about 5 gallons of apple mead. So I've got a Bibbermel and a Cicer going, which should be, touch wood, ready in a couple of months to finally taste. These are my first forays into anything outside of a basic mead, so they should be interesting. but yeah, so on the blacksmithing front, not much. Just working on the book, and yeah, just trying to keep myself out of trouble and not hurt myself. But now that it's drying up, and again, touch wood, it stays drying up, I'll be able to get back out and do some of the challenges and finish off some commissions I've got and get things done finally, which would be really, really nice because I've been missing swinging a hammer. And I'm also organised to get my big workshop finished now that I've got a little bit of money saved up towards to go towards the concreting. Got to hire machinery to dig out for electrical to go to it, and then put the foundations in and all that jazz. So fingers crossed it stays dry and I'm able to get some things done. So
I recommend if you've got a flooding problem in your forge area and you're not doing a raised up pad, I would recommend doing a split situation where you've got basically it slightly bevels in, and then you take like a 3-inch PVC tube, lay it down and then concrete around it, and then cut the top off of it, and then just put some grill over that so that it's you've got a gully that everything instead of sitting, it's got like a runs through and everything.
This time of year we get that much water that, put it this way, there's about an inch and a half between ground level and where my house pad is about an inch and a half above the nearly 2 inches above ground level. And we get that much water come through at this time of year. That water was basically level with my my veranda slab.
Yeah. So I mean, at a certain point, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, exactly. So
like a sump pit would be pointless.
My little workshop at the moment, what I've got set up to just do my forging at the moment is just it's eventually going to be my garden shed, so to speak, that I put my mower and the whipper snipper and all that type of thing in. It's not a permanent setup. That's why I'm building my bigger workshop down the front. That's what that's going to be. The thing my 500 subscriber giveaway from ages ago, a couple of years back before I moved out here, for designing my new workshop. That's basically what this is. And that will be a little bit better set up. And eventually I'm going to put a concrete slab and everything in it. But this little one that I'm working is basically just 3 walls and a roof that I'm eventually going to put my mower and everything in. But it was somewhere to work for now while I'm putting my big workshop together because I needed to swing a hammer. So it's, and like I said, this time of year it just gets to that point where there's so much water coming through. My driveway turns into a river. There's just that much water coming through that it doesn't matter what you do. It's just and like I said, it's at least an inch and a half of water just coming through the entire block. It doesn't matter where. I've got 40 acres and it's just an inch and a half. The whole thing's just running water.
Yeah.
You guys get inches of snow. We get inches of water. So yeah.
I don't get inches of snow.
Some people in the chat get inches of snow.
Yeah. I don't get inches of anything.
You barely know what an inch of anything is. So that means with touch wood, I can actually be involved in this month's blacksmithing challenge as well, depending on how things go. If it has actually stopped raining, or if we might get a couple of light showers here and there, that doesn't matter. But it means I'll actually be able to get back into doing things. And for those people, sorry,
go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, for those people that are interested, Wilson wants to come back and out and do more forging. He, of course, had Christmas and everything with his family, so he hit me up last week saying, "Hey, when can I come out and do some more blacksmithing?" Yeah, it's like, "Yeah, we'll organise that coming forward, man. It's been too wet." So so he'll be back out as well.
I was going to ask, are you doing that Instagram chat, Adam?
Yeah, I am. I just haven't been active and involved with it because I haven't been able to do anything. It's kind of like, I was just being quiet because I'll be quiet because I can't do anything about it at the moment.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah.
So as for my week, I'm I've been having trouble sleeping lately. Last night I didn't get much sleep. Like if we had roosters, I'd trying to go to sleep, I'd have gotten up and choked them. But yeah, just work. It's continuing to be that busy but not really busy. Like a lot of like a lot of stuff on the schedule, but a lot of quick stuff. It's Monday, or no, it was Wednesday. We drove to it was like almost an hour drive down to this job, and we get there, and I knock on the door. She's sitting on the couch. She goes, and ignores me, and I knock again. She's like, and gets up, and she's like, I called and canceled yesterday. I'm like, come on. So it's like I called, and I'm like, it was supposed to be a all day job. I called. I'm like, she canceled. So it's like I'm like driving back, and it was like scrambling to find something else for me to do, like shuffle the schedule around. And it was like, So fitting in little jobs here and there, just all over the freaking county, or multiple counties. And aside from that, it's like working on some of my side projects and things that I'm working on. A lot of stuff's heating up over there. A lot of hurry up and wait kind of situations in my life right now, where it's periods of, all right, I'm waiting for responses from people, and then once I get them, it's like, and then all right, now I gotta wait for the next step, and oh my god, gives me a headache. But I choose this life. But yeah, again, not much to report on the Forge front. I will be planning on getting back into it soon. Just got to get some stuff launched and rolling. And looks like Alexis wants to make fun of me, so go ahead. I'm an easy target.
Nope. I was just gonna say this chat needs to chill out. All this talk about wet and inches and I mean, come on, y'all get it together.
All right. And if
talking about inches nothing, and then it's like, really, come on.
Hey, in my comment, at least I didn't say it was wet and sloppy.
Yeah. wet and dirty. We're going to be as bad as a chat if we keep it up. Stop it. Hey, Oswan. Oswan, did somebody call for an inch? So speaking of the chat, I'd like to give a quick shout out to S&S Smithing, who is back from a several-year hiatus. Anybody who doesn't know who S&S Smithing is, that's Tucker from down in Florida, whose forge puppy is an alligator. How is the little swamp puppy doing? But yeah, so back on YouTube, back doing some videos, and I think live streams. I'm not certain, but yeah. Tucker's an old classic from back in the glory days of all of our YouTube channels, when we would do like collaboration videos and community videos. Tucker was always there chatting with everybody. What's up, Eric?
Well, that is back in the day.
Yeah, that is back in the day. Yeah. So yeah, everybody go toss a check out to S&S Smithing's channel. He's up to over 6 foot now, growing up. Yeah, nice. Yeah, graduating from little chicks to big chickens, right? He likes to. Never mind. Shut up, Adam. Shut up. I see your face. Shut up.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I went to check. How about that?
Yeah, Oswan, we will be talking about fuels. We were just getting our how you do's out the way. Oswan's like, get on topic, you jerks. I feel you, Oswan. All right,
it's
so
usually John that's telling us to get on topic.
Yeah, no. So this one's for you, John. Our topic today is forge fuels, and what we're going to start with is how you can burn mayonnaise to use as a blacksmithing fuel. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, who knows? I mean, it is carbon based, and yeah, it's liquidy, so you'd have to evaporate it to get it down to its, dried state. And then if you collect enough of it and scrape it and then compress it to make like mayonnaise dry mayonnaise chunks. You could probably use it as a fuel. I mean, if we're blacksmiths, we'll burn anything. I'd like to do that.
It's whipped vegetable oil. It'll burn.
Huh? Oh, it is.
Whipped
It's got
vegetable oil.
Yes. Yes.
You just got to get it hot enough.
Now, I wonder if burnt hot dogs could be used as a forge fuel. John's talking about his wife's cooking. Oh, you're horrible, John. But anyway, so forge fuels. Yeah, we've been doing the beginner series this year, and kind of giving information to people who come after us to watch the show after we're done with it, and kind of. We've been talking about like build your own forges, do it yourself forges, stuff that, can be done simply by anybody, to show that, it's like you don't need to have some, massive engineering degree or go to some fancy British school for blacksmithing, like some mooses out there. But yeah, the simple forge fuel. And just to give a quick overview, like, again, I keep alluding to it, we burn anything. Anything can really be used as forge fuel. It just matters on the efficiency for the BTUs that, makes some things more desirable or some things more useful than others. I mean, you could take a bunch of sticks and scrap 2x4s, toss them in a Whitlock forge and let that burn down and use that. Yeah, it's kind of charcoalish, but like you don't have to start with charcoal. Let me rephrase that. You don't have to start with charcoal, because if it burns, you can add air to it. It'll get hot enough, It comes down to efficiency.
I wanted to touch on, Aswan was saying he saw a YouTube video with a used oil with compressed air, and that thing melts a crucible like nobody's business. That is the problem. I was designing a liquid fueled forge at one time. And but it ran instead of compressed. Well, it did have compressed air, but I used a big old Mac turbocharger, and just the problem is it just melts everything. I mean, like everything, the rock, the everything. It gets so hot it melts rocks, and it's just like, well, that's not going to work. I mean, everything I could come up with for refractory, it would just melt it. And so I was like, okay, so I guess we're not going to be burning oil.
Right.
Well, on that note, there is generally speaking 4 types of forge fuels, and that comes down to the 4 states of matter. So we've got solid fuel, liquid fuel, gas fuel, and technically plasma, but or non-fuel sources. So that would include stuff like electricity, solar, all that type of thing. Now, in the pre-stream chat, we were actually talking about using solar as using a solar forge or something like that, particularly if you're a place like a desert that you don't have access to any sort of fuels. And if you had, like, for example, the access to a big lens from an old plasma TV, like you've seen, there's a couple of YouTubers that have melted rocks and all that type of thing with solar power. That is, for all intents and purposes, that could be a legitimate forge, being a solar forge. I wouldn't like to work outside. You'd have to set it up so you had some sort of shade, and the forge within the sun in the sunlight. But that's kind of not economical for the purposes that we're speaking of. Now,
right.
The hard fuels usually employed in smithies are, of course, wood, charcoal, coke, bituminous coal, and anthracite coal. And these are by no means all on an equity, but they have at least one point in common. That's, in general, they're used by smiths in such a way that they come into actual contact with the work in hand. All hard fuels mentioned consist mostly of carbon. Natural bituminous coal and natural anthracite consist largely of this substance, and when coals are treated by the coking process, certain gases pass off into the air, and some of the solid material disappears also, and what's left is coke. Now, coke, if it is clean, is fairly pure carbon. A black material also used in making lead pencils, graphite, is also a fairly pure carbon. Diamonds in jewelry are also a very pure carbon. So you can, and it's the reason why in house fires and stuff like that, people's diamond jewelry generally doesn't survive because it burns. So you can actually use diamonds, and Yum has made a joke about this before, even though it was a serious joke, it was still a joke in the fact, you can use diamonds to forge. Yes, if you had the money, you could theoretically, not theoretically, you could actually forge, fuel your forge with diamond.
Just scoop some
Now-
diamonds.
On a side note, 99% of house fires happen to people that aren't subscribed. So make sure you.
Yeah.
It could be a coincidence, but it might
Yeah.
not be.
And
Okay,
don't forget to hit that thumbs up while you're there.
And it's got to be 99% because I do believe we have a subscriber that had a house fire. So we'll never be 100%. It sucks. But, be safe out there. Let's keep that number up at 99%. If you subscribe here, you won't be a victim of a house fire. Or you may not be a victim of house fires. Island Metal Forge and Impractical Blacksmiths preventing house fires since 1973.
Yeah. Now, like I
We're
said,
the oldest running YouTube channel ever.
So coal is often considered the best when it comes to forge fuels. On a BTU, or a BTU would actually stand for British Thermal Unit. For those of you who don't know, but it was first developed by the British College of Sciences, I believe. But according to Smiths throughout history, best coal used for forge work should be the best quality bituminous or soft coal. Alternatively, anthracite can be used, which is a hard coal, but this does need consistent airflow in order to keep lit. Now, just a second, I've just lost my spot. Bituminous coal can in general be distinguished by the crumbling lumps when it's hit with a hammer, but the most reliable test is to note the characteristics in actual use. It should coke easily, and that is when dampened and put on fire, it should cake or puff up and form coke, not break into small pieces. It should be free from sulfur as possible and make very little clinker when burned. Good forge coal should be of even structure through the lumps, and the lump should crumble easily in the hand. The lump should crumble rather than split into layers, and the broken pieces should look bright and glossy on all faces, almost like black glass, and no dull looking streaks. Ordinary soft coal, such as used for steaming or heating coal, makes a dirty fire with a lot of clinker. Steaming coal, when broken, is liable to split into layers, some of which are bright and glossy, while others are dull and salty looking. Coal containing sulfur or phosphorus is to be avoided, as these elements are absorbed by the iron. Sulfur makes the iron what's called hot short, so it's brittle and crumbles whilst forging, and phosphorus makes it cold short or brittle when it's cold. Now, an interesting bit of information that I found out whilst researching for my book is from the late 1800s, the United States government actually maintained a department which was largely engaged in the analyzing of coal from various mining regions. It was called the Bureau of Mines in the Department of the Interior, and from 1914 they published bulletins in 1914, they published the Bulletin Number 85, which analyzed hundreds of coal from various mines around the US. Today, that's actually contained under the US Geological Survey, which still maintains records of various competitions of coal across the US in the National Coal Resources Data System. So you can actually look up what coal comes from your region, and it has the general sulfur and phosphorus content and moisture content contained in the coal from your region, which will actually help you decide whether that bituminous coal or anthracite is decent for forging, or where you can get a decent supply of coal from your relative region in the US. Of course, now I'm in Australia. I'm sure Australia has something like that itself. I haven't looked that far into it, to be perfectly honest. I do know
Alright.
that there is no coal mines near me, but for those of you that are interested, I will say that again. So that's the US Geological Survey, and the record is the National Coal Resources Data System, or NCRDS. Excuse me.
Okay. So you with that BTUs become, now that I know that that's British thermal units, I have to of course be the American, and so I've been searching up, like, okay, we're gonna have to change it from British thermal units to banana thermal units, and we have to find out how many BTUs you can achieve from burning a banana, and then convert
Well,
that.
why
And why
do
not?
that when you can,
Why not?
when you can just
Why
when you can
not?
just call it blacksmithing thermal units?
Why not banana thermal units? And it's how many bananas it takes to heat a football field, and that's the American way. So I found a chart, for average BTUs for different materials, everything from alfalfa pellets, aspen pellets, corn, dried distiller grain, hardwood pellets, oats, soybeans, straw and wheat, straw and oat, sugar beet pulp, and sunflower hulls, which I think, of that, sugar beet pulp would probably be the closest to a banana in consistency and moisture content. So sugar beet pulp is 7,345 BTUs per pound. So if we take and we average that out to banana pellets, and
Hey, there's one problem with your bananas though.
no, there's no problem with bananas. Bananas are
Potassium
life.
40.
Bananas are love. Calcium 40, potassium 40.
Potassium
Yes.
40.
So fission. Their isotopes. Their isotopes are hot. So we just need to do that conversion of how many banana thermal units are equal to one British thermal unit, and then switch over the numbers so that we're using banana thermal units instead. Good morning, Thomas.
40 pounds of bananas and got like 3 or 4 grams of potassium 40 out of it. Like, jeez, that's a lot.
So
Now,
sorry, I had to do it because, taxation is theft.
We're getting off on a tangent here.
Huh?
We're getting off on a tangent here. Somebody saw a squirrel.
Yum, saw a squirrel. Okay, so Coke.
Hey, I'll have some.
There's a squirrel.
Now, just to appease some of the people in the chat that may not use a coal or coal-based products, or what was his name, Aziz or Asuz, earlier, I am getting a charcoal. We'll get there in a minute. So coke is made from the steaming of bituminous coal, burning it slowly for some time, and if you do this at a forge, don't disturb it with a poker until it is caked well. It has been found that packing also helps materially in the production of coke. Coke should be saved when cleaning out a fire at a hearth at the end of a forging period, or when building a second fire. The center of the fire burns out somewhat like a crater and has to be consistently refilled with extra coke. If it is necessary to have a small fire, the coke should be broken into small pieces. Now, do not continually poke or disturb a coke fire, but keep the center full of small pieces of coke. Now, I'm going to skip on clinker and come back to it a little bit later, because clinker is the useless or the byproduct of burning coal and coke. Now, charcoal. It's generally accepted there are 3 types of charcoal: those that are made from hardwoods, those that are made from softwoods, and charcoal briquettes. Now, charcoal should be relatively light but solid and well cooked, sounding like glass when dropped together, snapping crisply. Softwood charcoal will burn faster than that made of hardwood, but overall both will burn faster than coal or coke. It should, in general, be treated like coke in use, and it will produce little to no clinker. In addition to this, avoid charcoal briquettes, as they're predominantly made of unevenly cooked chipboard and a binder. They create sparks, also known as fire fleas, exceptionally badly due to retained moisture content, and can also spit and pop, risking fire outside of your actual forge area. Now, these may not adequately get stock up to workable temperature. Interestingly, although barbecue briquettes were actually first created for and manufactured alongside early model Ford cars, and they were made from the waste from their body manufacturing process. And these were actually given away and sold as a marketing gimmick to encourage people to use their motor vehicles recreationally in the early days of automotive transport. They were actually given away and sold to people who bought early model Fords to encourage them to get out and have barbecues and picnics away from the city and in the country and stuff like that. So ideally, charcoal is best used in a forge fire. Should be about the size of your thumb joint, about 25 millimeters or 1 inch, and up to a maximum of 50 millimeters or 2 inches in length. The larger than this, it won't settle well, and too much air will flow through and create an oxidizing fire. Now, if you're not able to, or is not feasible to break your charcoal down to this side range, letting your forge burn down until it reaches this stage will suffice when you're first lighting a forge, and with forging operations, reducing the size of the fuel surrounding the fire pot to the appropriate size, as much as coal will reduce to coke. So, going on, other forge fuels. So when we've got gas, and so when speaking of gas, there's generally 4 types being referred to in one of 3 categories. So first, there's natural gas, which is often piped into businesses or homes in various networks around the world from local distribution stations. In many places, natural gas mains to houses and businesses consider it another utility, and they're generally plumbed into a grid or network by a licensed gas installer. Natural gas is primarily methane gas, which is CH4 or 1 carbon to 4 hydrogen atoms. And this category also includes things like wood gas, synth gas, biogas, and all other naturally produced or naturally adjacent gases, most of which are comprised primarily of methane or a methane hydrogen mix. Then we've got LNG, so liquefied natural gas. Now, as name implies, it is natural gas that has been liquefied. This is achieved cryogenically, cooling the gas to minus 120 to minus 170 degrees Celsius, or minus 184 to minus 274 degrees Fahrenheit, resulting in an increased density of up to 6,000%, making it more convenient for shipping and industrial applications. However, before its use, it must be safely reheated to regasify through the use of expensive equipment, and as such, is usually reserved for bulk industrial processes. Alexis, did you want to say something?
No,
lots of things. Nope. You can't type in the chat that you can't get a word in edgewise if when you're given the opportunity you don't put a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying Guten Tag to Jürgen, and I was going to say it like a long time ago, but then Adam just going, so I was like, screw it, I'll type it. The chat moved on from wet, sloppy, and inches to the other kind of Coke, and
Oh, this chat is on fire today.
Yeah, it is. Now I can see, as one said, I have a 70 gram bag. So I have a 70 bag of wheat.
I'm thinking 70 gram bag.
Yeah. Still waiting to use hardwood, mangrove,
it's like 2
charcoal. Burn sweet, no pop, no ashes. Loving it. That means as one that it has been properly cooked. One of the things that a lot of people will experience with store-bought charcoal, it's generally used for barbecuing purposes, for smoking and that type of thing, and it's generally been undercooked. They do that deliberately in order to maintain some of the moisture weight, so you get less charcoal for what you're paying for. But also because it doesn't need most cooking charcoal doesn't need to get to the temperatures that we use it at. So you'll find it generally doesn't have that crisp, snapping quality to it that a properly made charcoal will. Now, it is also very easy to overcook charcoal, in which case it actually becomes crumbly. There's a I wouldn't say a fine line, but there is a line between being well cooked and being overcooked. If you ever make your own charcoal, you will find that in your charcoal retort, you will have some sections where even if most of it is cooked perfectly, you have sections which are just overcooked and will crumble to dust really easily.
It's just like a steak. Once you get past medium, you might as well just forge with it.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do like my steaks medium well to well. Yes, I'm sacrilegious like that.
And I thought Australians were cool.
I said I like me and my best friend have arguments about this all the time because he likes his steak blue, right? And I like mine medium well to well. So blue is barely cooked.
Blue is still too cooked for me. I pass the cow through the room, and I'll take chunks out of it as it's walking.
I know people that like their steak so undercooked that it hasn't even warmed up on the inside. Like it's still refrigerator cold in the middle, and I'm like, nah.
That's my best friend. That's friend. He literally heated up the grill or whatnot or frying pan. It's heated up to nice and hot. He'll pull it off the tray. He'll put it on for 2 seconds, flip it for 2 seconds. That's it. It's cooked for him. It's kind of like that's still freaking raw. You know?
I like my steak so blue that cow is depressed.
But moving on. So yeah. So like I said, so we've just done liquefied natural gas. The next one is liquefied petroleum gas. So LPG is a gaseous product, a byproduct of oil refining. It's commonly either propane or butane, as both fall into the category of LPG. LPG is commonly used in domestic, commercial, and industrial settings as bottled gas. LPG is overall more energy dense than natural gas, being on average about double the BTUs or British thermal unit.
Banana thermal units.
Okay, banana thermal unit. Than LNG. Now, the BTU is used to measure heat potential of fuel, originally defined as heat required to raise the temperature of one average pound of liquid water by 1 degree Fahrenheit at a consistent pressure of 1 atmospheric unit or 1 pound 1 degree Fahrenheit at sea level. So that's how it was measured. Now, gas forges using natural gas are designed to use high pressure industrial systems or for low pressure domestic systems, require specially forced air equipment. LPG is able to be naturally aspirated as well as being able to use forced air. LPG is, however, more expensive per pound or per kilogram, and bottles and equipment must be factored into both the cost and care equations of building a forge. And next one is fuel oil. So fuel oil is a product of petroleum obtained after kerosene, gasoline, and other lightweight oils have been removed. It varies greatly in accordance with the districts from which petroleum is secured. And under ordinary conditions in 1919, it was cheap and provided the point of use is not more than 100 miles or so from the refinery. It, of course, is still being used around, particularly around the US and Canada for heating purposes, and one pound of it being equal to about one and a quarter pounds of high grade steam coal. But of course, the design for most of these fuel oil forges have been lost over time. They were very specialty. They had special design nozzles in order to aerosolize the oils, which have now we do change that. We have kind of converted. It's the same principle as using used oil or motor oil or in order to
heat a home or something.
Fuel. Yeah, but it's also to use. There are, like someone said in the chat earlier, burners and stuff like that for smelting that use use oil, motor oil as a fuel source. On that note, liquid oils such as canola oils and that type of thing can also be used as a forge fuel, as Alexis pointed out earlier. However, their BTUs, or their ability to produce heat, is generally lower. Also, most natural oils have a higher ignition point, particularly canola oil and rice bran oil have a generally higher ignition point than motor oils.
That's actually incorrect. Oils burn considerably hotter.
Yes, oils will burn considerably hotter, but I was saying that a natural like a canola oil and stuff like that will have a lower BTU than a motor oil, which is a more carbon dense product. So. Yeah, but like I said, the natural oils like your canola oil, or your rice bran oil, stuff like that, will generally have a higher ignition temperature as well, which is why when it comes to particularly quenching for high carbon steel, if you're going to use natural rice bran or canola oil, are better and safer, and in converted commas, of course, safer than motor oil because they have a higher flash point. So if you're building a oil burning forge, you need to get the canola oil and stuff like that hotter than you would a motor oil, because it or a petroleum based oil, because they do have a higher flash point. Of course,
coconut oil has a flash point of 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm sorry, Walt Parkhurst was asking that in the chat, and that is just something that I know off the top of my head. I surely didn't just Google it on my phone.
Yeah. Now, don't get too caught up in what we're talking about now. We're doing this is the start of the month. We're doing a general overview of forge fuels. We're not going too in depth into each one, simply because we've got the whole month to do, and so we're going to cover a lot. We're going to go a little bit more in depth into these things later on this month. So, come back, stay tuned, listen in, particularly for the episode that you really want to, know more about. So we'll go more into charcoal, probably go more into, we'll go more into coal, and we'll go into more into the other fuel sources more in this month.
And we haven't even talked about plasma.
No, we barely touched on electricity, all that type of thing. So that's just a brief overview of the types of fuels that we do generally use as blacksmiths, the most common ones anyway. Of course, we can go in this month. We'll go into most blacksmiths now don't do it, but it's probably a good thing to look into, particularly if you're using mine-sourced coal, and that's washing your coal and things like that. Also, the idea of keeping your coal in a drum of water for safety reasons, but also because that actually, helps the coking process when you pull it out to put into your forge. So these are things that we'll cover off, coming up in the month. And Yames is trying to stop himself from laughing at something. What?
No, I love that. Okay, that's something that it's important that we hammer into people's heads. Again, most of the chat knows this, but this is for beginners. Over the course of several years, or over the course of about a year, this one particular blacksmith, every single week in my live stream, would ask me the same question, and I would answer it in various ways to try to get him to not ask that question and to learn. It initially started out that he was buying his coal and was very, very concerned that he wouldn't be able to forge with it until it dried out, because he kept it outside and it got rained on, and he was like, it's like, I guess thinking it's like wood. And my first thing was like, I'm not going to use the name here. It's a rock that we're burning. You know, it's a rock that we're lighting on fire. So, and then the next week I would prove it. So like I took like a handful of coal, dipped it in my select tub, and tossed it right on the fire. You know, and then the next week when he asked, it's like I had it burning. And I took freaking squirt bottle with water. You know, and the next week it was like, all right, I'm not answering this again because I've answered it for the past month. And then 2 weeks later he asked again, and it was like, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so okay. So in this situation, I learned something today that I did not know. The whole bit about so between the three of us, a lot of times we make fun of the way Adam reads information, just like he's like Eminem doing Monster. But he was talking about earlier, like the steam, like coke steam being integral to coking up coal. I've never heard of that.
Really?
And like no, and like I mean, like I know your coal can be wet, and it doesn't have anything to do with it. I had no idea. I literally had no idea that water enhances that process in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I literally did not know that.
It's
actually essentially to it.
Yeah, from what
And
I understand, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. This would be a nice little like MythBusters or whatever science moment. From what I understand, is the impurities in coal burn off at a lower temperature than the carbon itself, so that if you're using the water and the steam to keep the carbon cooler than the impurities burn off, leaving said more pure form of coal or more pure form of carbon.
Yeah,
it's not literally they're steaming off.
Yeah, well, it's not so much as steaming off in a sense they are. If you think about it, water is dihydrogen monoxide. Okay, to put it in scientific terms, sulfur combines with hydrogen and oxygen a lot easier than carbon. So the steam, the process of making coke. In the process of making coke, of course, you're making steam, which the bonds of the hydrogen and the oxygen in steam are a lot weaker than the bonds of oxygen hydrogen in liquid water. So the sulfur and phosphorus that's naturally contained in all, particularly bituminous coal, in the process of coking, the water heating up to steam can combine with those chemicals, the sulfur and the phosphorus, and other volatile materials in the coke, and off gas a lot easier than if they were not wet, in which case the carbon would burn and those volatiles burn before the chance of before the moisture, or when the moisture naturally occurring in the coal steams off and takes those things with them. By adding the extra water, you're actually providing the ability for that extra water to take more of those volatiles away with it. I believe one of the old coking processes through history was actually to start the coking process and then spray water on the coke, and basically they would keep repeating this process until no more off gassing occurred, and that's how you would get your best quality coke. Nowadays, coking isn't such a common thing, or it's generally industrial process that's provided to steel mills, not so much on a smaller commercial basis. It's now primarily industrial. So, and that, of course, that process still happens today, but it's a lot more scientific controlled. If you're having coke to make steel, it's very, very high quality now. If you can get hold of industrial grade coke, you grab it, because it's a fantastic forging fuel. It's very low in phosphorus and sulfur. But yeah, water is integral to the creation of coke, and you'll see any long-term experienced blacksmith, particularly people like Roy, and John, and a lot of other very long-term experienced smiths that specialize in coke usage, will have their coal coking around the outside of their forge pit, whilst they are whilst they are actually forging, and in the process of their fire control, which is generally wetting down their nest of coal that they have around, that is continually introducing that water to provide that steam, which is off gassing to make a good quality coke. Yeah.
Well, now see, now when I'm working a coal fire, the only time I add water is to like control the fire when it's getting a little bit bigger than it needs to be. I mean, like, when I'm working a small little bit, if I'm going to punch a hole in, if I'm going to punch a hole in this horseshoe, I don't need a fire that's this big around. This much is good enough. So I drizzle some water on it to kind of contain it and not burn up too much. But a lot of times, like, I mean, like the whole time I made this, I never touched the water. I mean, I just push the coal in, it burns and cokes up, and keep on going. But if I'm doing something bigger than stuff, I'll use the water to. I had no idea the water actually contributed to the coking process. So, I mean, now I've got about a million other questions that follow this up. I'm like, shit, I'm going to spend the rest of the day doing research now.
Yep. No, it's definitely good. So, yeah. So fire, and it all comes that comes back to the age old thing. Fire control is very, very important when blacksmithing. But yeah. So that's a general introduction into forge fuels. We did have a couple of questions in the chat, I believe. Let me scroll back up and have a bit of a look.
One question is, Yamez, are you getting in the shop tonight? I mean, I know the answer to that.
Yeah, no, I've got like 4 meetings tonight throughout. Well, I got something coming up at noon. I've got a meeting at 3, and I've got a meeting at about 6:30, and then something going on around 10. I've got to talk. I'm speaking with developers, marketers. I've got a staff meeting. What's that?
Maybe we can get John to go live on Island Metal Forge then, huh?
Yeah. John, would you like to go live on Island Metal Forge tonight at 6? We can get you going.
Okay. Adam, what did you have?
Okay, so as one, and this might actually be a good question for you there, Alexis. As one, Atoya said, which is better, propane or butane? Now, my answer to that is overall, they're kind of the same thing. They're slightly different in chemical composition, of course, but like I said, you're probably better off answering that there, Alexis.
So the prefix to ane designates how many hydrogen atoms there are. Methane is 1 hydrogen, CH4. 4 carbon, 1 hydrogen. Butane is
3.
C. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, no, butane is 2 hydrogen. Propane is 3 hydrogen. On and on. Pentane, hexane, septane, octane, nonane. The more anes you have, the more hydrogen atoms you have. The more hydrogen atoms you pack into a molecule, the more BTUs it has. So the higher up the ane list, the more hydrogen you have packed into a molecule, the more BTUs you have. That's why like things like crude oil or motor oil burn so hot, is because they're these long hydrocarbon chains with lots and lots of hydrogens on them, and they burn much hotter. And consequently, a lot of those, the more hydrogens you pack in there, they also have a higher flash point, a higher ignition temperature. Crude oil happens to be an exception to that because there are so many different hydrocarbons contained in the same substance. Gasoline, kerosene, diesel, all the things that make plastics, asphalt. All of that's contained into one. And so, like, I know for me in the oil field, when there's a flare going, And if that flare is just burning off methane, you can stand out at the end of the catwalk and you're like, man, I can feel it. Literally, you can be 100 yards away and you can feel the heat coming through the window of your truck from a methane flare. But if that flare hits crude oil, I mean, you're backing up. You're like, holy crap! I mean, it puts off heat for. You could probably. I've been as far away as a quarter of a mile away from a flare burning crude oil and been able to feel the heat from it. So it's just there's the more hydrogen you can pack into a molecule, the more heat you're going to get out of it. And so that's methane, butane, propane. I don't remember what 4 is. Pentane, hexane, septane, octane, like that. And as you go up, it gets hotter. And so propane is more efficient than butane. And that's why really that is why households shifted like in the 70s or 80s from butane, like you used to have a butane tank outside, and they shifted from butane to propane because propane is more efficient. Butane nowadays, the only thing it's used for is basically cigarette lighters, is the only commercial application as far as being flammable. Its primary application now is refrigerant. So isobutane is a refrigerant in gas processing plants. It's what they use to chill natural gas and make like LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, or whatever. So that's really the only 2 uses for butane now is refrigerant and cigarette lighters, because everything else is more efficient.
Yeah, and that's also the reason why with methane or natural gas forges and stuff like that. Go ahead.
I was going to get to that, and the reason we use methane in like commercial, like city, like city gas or whatever. The reason we use methane is because it is it's technically a renewable resource. You can make the rocks make natural gas. It's not a finite resource, but it's also really cheap, and the byproduct of burning it is cleaner than all the other ones. So like what is produced when you burn methane has less toxins than what is produced from butane, and on up the line. And so, having your stove burning methane inside an enclosed space is less toxic than if you're burning butane or something else. So that is primarily why we use methane, which has the least BTUs of everything else, but it also burns cleaner and is less likely to asphyxiate the occupants of a home.
Yep. Also, my couch is a methane farm.
Yes, it is. I can confirm.
On that note, though, we will go more into gases as forge fuels later on this month. That was just a general overview, because talking about gases as forge fuels, of course, we come into oxyacetylene, oxypropane for heating and cutting and all that type of thing. Oxypropane doesn't do so well in cutting, but they were things that it's a part of blacksmithing history, and it's also part of using as a forge fuel. So that will be covered in a little bit more depth later on this month. But like I said, today was just a general overview of forge fuels. Of course, we didn't touch on electricity. We didn't touch really that much on solar. So these are things that, of course, we can go into later on, but we're not going into right now. And Yames has decided to have a nap because I've started talking.
No. That's going into my final thought. I'll explain what's going on with my head right now. So if we're moving into final thoughts, because like we said, this is just an overview, and we don't want to get too deep. My final thoughts is I'm tired. It's insane how speaking of fuels, and this has nothing to do with blacksmithing except for technically fueling the human machine is part of blacksmithing, because everything you can literally, like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, you can do the same thing with blacksmithing. You could say this right here, this cone has to do with blacksmithing. Why? I don't know. I'll figure it out. You can clean out the coals, whatever. But I've had one pot of coffee and one pot of improvised Cuban coffee, basically, pressure forcing through coffee grounds and whatnot. And that caffeine jolt is gone, and now I'm like in that crash mode. I didn't get any sleep last night. I am probably going to fall asleep before I can press end. Or I just need to get up and make another pot of coffee. But anyway, my final thoughts on fuel is it's you hear me joke around and say, "Oh, blacksmiths will use anything for fuel," and it's actually true. Caratoke Blacksmith over in Ghana, I believe. What's his name? I used to talk with him all the time. Isaac. He uses a not corn, palm kernel, which would be the equivalent of us using corn, and puts out some. I remember when he first popped on YouTube and first popped on Facebook and was sharing things, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and it's like over the years, it's like I've watched him grow, and it's like, fantastic stuff with a, it's like basically built up a clay forge and using a scrap bicycle, to run his forge fan to burn palm kernels that he gathers from the community, and it's like cow patties. We'll burn anything. So, absolutely. When we talk about forge fuels, it's like we can literally talk about anything as long as it's got some banana thermal units going on. That's my final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thoughts. Gosh, forge fuel is kind of a fun topic just because it really does encompass anything that contains carbon. I mean, you can realistically and actually you burn if it will burn, you can forge with it. It may not be efficient, but it'll work. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I guess if you tried hard enough, you could forge with a human. I wouldn't recommend it. There are a whole lot of issues that might come up in that regard.
Yeah, the screaming and...
but I don't even know where that came from. But no, it's fascinating especially amongst blacksmiths, to sit and ponder the possibilities of using different things that you've never used before, like palm kernels, or what about cottonseed hulls, or what about corn, all
walnut
things
shells,
that
ground coffee grounds. Yeah,
there are so many options you could use, and it's like, I wonder how that would work. Now, granted, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we all know that the most efficient thing you're going to forge with is coke. But it is fun to consider the other options. I mean, especially when you have an unlimited supply of something for free. In a comparable situation years ago, when I was producing spirits for, let's say, fueling a motor vehicle. That's what it was for. On my honor. I was looking at free sources of sugar, because I can get sugar from a rig, the 50-pound sacks out there all the time. But I was like, but if I'm going to doing this, well, here I am in sugar beet country. And I was like, I told a friend, I did some math, and I told a friend of mine that works on a farm, I was like, I need 27 pounds of sugar beets. This is what I need to do an experiment to measure how much convertible sugars there are in sugar beet. And so he brings me 3 sugar beets, and he's like, yeah, I dropped 3 of them off at your house. I was like, 3? The hell am I going to do with 3 sugar beets? Well, then I get home and they're larger than my head. All 3, and they were like 28 pounds. I was like, all 3 of them. I was like, wow. Anyways, I was contemplating a free source of sugar. Turned out to not be a good idea. It was more trouble than it was worth, but it was fun to do. The same thing applies to forging. It's fun to try these other fuel sources, just to see what happens. Even though we know it's not going to be as good as coke, it's still fun to burn those coffee grounds, or the whatever. So
to try it.
If you think about it, yeah, try it. See what you got laying around that you're like, I don't need that. Screw it. Let's burn it. Throw it in the forge and see what's the worst thing that can happen. The metal doesn't get hot enough. Although I would say be careful of what you throw in there due to like off-gassing. So you don't want to throw something in there that's going to produce toxic fumes. Like, oh, I got a whole box of plastic sandwich baggies. Let's burn those. I wouldn't recommend it. Or styrofoam. So, Adam, final thoughts?
So my final thoughts is like Alexis was saying, a lot of things can be used to forge fuel. The biggest limiter being effort, effort and fuel quantity to outcome. Like, for example, I have a hell of a lot of it's a weed here in Australia, but it's an African grass called gamba grass. Now, gamba grass burns extremely hot. It is naturally burned. When it burns naturally, it can melt steel, particularly with a slight breeze. However, the quantity of fuel of the dried gamba grass in order to maintain a forge fire, I could use it, but it is ridiculous amount. So I'm talking bushels, which is a bushel is a very large quantity of. Think of it like bales.
Yeah.
So
A bushel of oysters is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'd have to use bushels of it to maintain a forge fire, in which case it's not economical in order to do a forge fire. Could I do it? Yes, absolutely. I could probably do it. I could theoretically use gamba grass to smelt iron quite easily, but economy-wise, it's not economical for me to use. And that's another factor that we haven't touched on why certain fuels aren't used commonly. Or certain materials aren't used commonly as forge fuels, because the economy of it isn't practical.
Like diamonds.
It's far too expensive to use diamonds for. The economy of it, the financial economy of it, isn't practical.
Speak for yourself. I'm a YouTuber.
So if you have a quantity of something that you think may be economical, being walnut shells, being acorns, being the Japanese tend to use a lot of pine for their charcoal for forging. So if you have pine, if you have access to old wooden pallets, be careful that they're not. There's certain pallets out there that are treated and have those not very nice chemicals in them. So just be aware. But those particularly single-use pallets are great for forge fuel. If you have access to a lot of those, cut them up and use them. Why not? Or turn them into charcoal, whatever. As long as they're not owned, and like I said, single-use ones particularly. We have a brand of pallets here in Australia called Shep. All Shep pallets are generally painted blue, and they're owned by Shep, and they must be returned to Shep. And if you get caught with a Shep pallet, you can actually be fined. It's technically theft. So be aware of those types of obligations. But if you have access to a large quantity of something that you think would be economical, give it a try. Why not? You might save yourself a few dollars. But yeah, that's my final thoughts. Now, before we go, thank you for joining us. Of course, you can find Yamet on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have any suggestions for the Tool of the Week, Metal of the Week, or any other topic, you can leave it under the hashtag Metal of the Week in the YouTube community chat in our Discord, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com. If you found us on Spotify, Amazon, or Google Podcasts, we generally upload every Wednesday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time. That's late Sunday night, early Sunday morning. Late Sunday night, early Monday morning. But check that against your local time, and that's at the Island Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to give us a star rating. We really appreciate your support. That's my final thoughts. Does anyone else have anything to add before we wrap up for this evening? Yeah,
I'm good.
I
I like the
I saw you doing it.
idea. I like the idea of getting a sock puppet. Put glasses on it, a little scruffy beard. You know, make it hold an alligator in one hand.
Already, they're all crusty and
Oh yeah, hashtag fourth sock.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna make a sock puppet.
To everyone in the chat, you can all get stuff.
You know what? You know what? You know how they got them VR tubers? This is it's something to add before I end it. You know they got them VTubers or whatever, them virtual YouTubers or virtual streamers or whatever. I'm gonna look into those programs. I'm gonna make one and have it like sit here right in the center and just be a secondary for the another host. Have an AI virtual.
Have an AI Adam for when I'm not here to actually do the outro, and you can just play it.
You know what? I bet we could.
VTuber do it.
I bet we could feed all your videos and all our Impractical Blacksmithing videos into an AI program and do like a virtual like AI version of our show, and I bet that would be freaking wild. I want to try that.
I know we could. There's enough of our voice sampling on there that the AI could totally make us say anything. I mean, you could just type out anything or tell it to come up with a thing, and it would make an entire show using all three of us, and that'd be so weird.
And it even reads our chat, the chat interaction. The AI would interact with the chat like a chat bot, and you know what? You guys are never gonna know if we do that. You guys are never gonna know.
Stop giving our AI overlords ideas, right?
No, I am pro Project Basilisk.
We've got an NPC Alexis down here.
It's like what is that NPC trend that's going on? It's like pop 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 or whatever. Oh my
anyway,
God.
on that note, let's shut this down. You guys have a great day. Keep your forges lit, and we'll catch us all next time.
All right. Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.